He said that he moved here in '94 and the car has sat since then. So it's sat for 26 years. When I got the car, it would not move at all. It was literally seized solid. That's good. Oh yeah, plenty of spark. So I'm trying to work on this Maverick and I'm missing just one little simple tool. And I'm going to spend all day trying to find it basically. And I'll be honest with you, walking by this Challenger is not making that any easier. I would love to work on this car right now. You know, with the fact that it's got this brand new 5.7 Hemi engine, an immaculate paint job, and just a gleaming brand new interior inside, it's hard to not want to have this car. And basically, you know, it could be seen as the envy of most any man. Now I know everybody would want to have their hands on this beautiful ride right here, but Omaze is actually giving away a 2018 Dodge Demon and $20,000. Check this thing out. This thing is beautiful. So you can drive away in this 2018 Dodge Challenger Demon, and it's only one of 3,300 produced, and it has less than 150 miles on it. Crack open the Demon crate and kit your car out for the drag strip, where you can literally do wheelies with this car. It's got over 800 horsepower and it's one of the most powerful V8 production cars ever. And on top of that, you get $20,000 and you can do whatever you want with it. What's awesome is that taxes and shipping are included, and the best part is every donation supports the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. So with a $10 donation, you are entered to win for this Challenger. So guys, make sure you go down to the link below at omaze.com/Dylan. That's omaze.com/Dylan to be entered into the chance to win this amazing Challenger. Good luck. Now that we've verified that the engine can actually run, I want to take the time and try to at least save it so that way we don't blow it up. I'm just going to take out the lower radiator hose real quick and see if I can clean out the radiator. At least until we get a new one, because I don't want to run this one very long, but I do want to run it long enough to where the engine can at least get up to operating temperature and possibly, hopefully, warm up enough to where we can get the #1 spark plug out. But once we do all that, then we can, if the radiator's not any good, we can either get it fixed or replace it. But I can already see that there's like a giant dirt dauber nest within the core, and I cannot get it out for anything. But you know, it'll dissolve with water, so hopefully once I fill it up, all that'll dissolve and then run out the lower radiator hose. So I just need to break this one loose. There's a little baby bit of coolant still left in there. The hose is wet. Filled up these old jugs that are each a gallon with just straight water, just to flush it out. And eventually, you know, it's not freezing temperatures here just yet, so this water will be okay, at least to run it. But we just want to flush all this radiator out real quick. And the water pump is a water pump. It still exists on this engine. Not for long though. That's the bearing. So I'm going to pour a few gallons of water through this thing and see what comes out the other side. If anything comes out the other side, for that matter. Ooh, that's gross. Look at how nasty the water is coming out. But it's at least flowing, so that's a plus. But still, that would be going in our engine. So we're going to flush this out the best that I can until it looks fairly clear coming out the other side. And then hopefully when we pressurize it, it doesn't leak. No promises. It's looking a little bit more clear, but still very nasty. I don't see any corrosion around the welds here or anything, around where they put the core together with the tank. I don't see anything bad, so that's probably a good sign. Typically on these tanks you'll see they'll start to corrode really bad, but I don't see that. And the fins aren't crushed up or anything. So this radiator may be salvageable for a little bit of time. I put the lower radiator hose back on. I flushed 8 gallons of water through this thing until it ran clean. So at least the radiator should be somewhat clean, if not anything. So the engine, can't really say for certain. Don't know if it's going to be clean or not, but we can at least flush the system once we get to that point. So this water pump, really don't know how long it's going to last. Radiator, don't really know how it's going to last. I need to get a cap for it, but we can at least get some coolant running through the system. Well, good news. We've struck water. All I did was fill this thing up. There's no pressure on it at all. And that happened. So, don't think we'll be running this thing with any pressure on it. I'm gonna have to get a radiator for it. Well, we couldn't get lucky with the radiator, so let's just take it out. I've actually got a new one. I'll show you that here in a minute. I'm gonna take this PB blaster here, spray all these bolts for the radiator, the water pump, because all that's got to come out. So let's just soak this sucker down, because I know it's not going to be too fun to take out, but the longer we let it soak, the better off we shall be. Got the transmission cooler lines off. That was going to be the hardest part, so hopefully the rest of this should be downhill. If we can get these radiator hoses off without damaging them, I'll consider that a win as well, so we can just reuse these until we get some better ones. Yeah, perfect. The water neck is on the other side for the other radiator, so if that'll just somehow flex the opposite direction. Oh, that is absolutely full of trash. Oh, wow. The water pump is full of rust. Listen to this. It's trash coming out of the radiator hose. Well, we might not have as much luck as we thought originally. Perfect. Well, now while we have all this access up front, we'll pull the fan and try to get this water pump out. Because if you can see what's in here, let me show you that real quick, because it's not great. So check out the thermostat housing. My hope is that that did not get into the engine. So it's a good thing our radiator actually ended up being bad, because all this junk was in there. Typically, you don't really ever see that. Well, I mean, the fact that the cap was off was what the big issue was. If we had a cap on it, then I doubt any of that would have been in there. Stuff's been able to crawl up through these radiator hoses and make a nest in here. So we will hopefully be able to take this off and see that nothing has gotten past the thermostat. If that's the case, I'll feel a heck of a lot better. Well, I've got a new thermostat, new gasket, and we will attempt to change the water pump here. Is it good or bad if a water pump bolt is already loose? Oh, it's a stud. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Oh, why don't more people do that? That is awesome. Ford, you had it figured out on that, dude. That's great. No way. This may be the easiest water pump install ever, as long as I don't break a bolt. Now, a big block Chrysler is pretty easy too. It's just a matter of having to remove all the stuff in front of it. That's tough. But this thing's got the water pump, and it's got all the heater hose housings and everything built into it. That makes it a lot easier. And all you gotta do is run a heater hose to the block. There's clean water then. The thermostat housing is packed full, so that's good. I figured the thermostat at least stopped it. I think it did. Oh, that looks great. Except the water pump's nasty, but the water inside it's clean. Well, it came apart. This is about as hackery as it gets. What I have done is actually taken the thermostat housing off, and it was absolutely disgusting. So I cleaned it out and took the thermostat out. There's nothing in here blocking this. And what I've done on the suction side, on the lower side, I've just twisted the hose upward, and I'm going to start the car up, pour water down through here, and hopefully it'll run out through this side of the water pump all of our trash. And that's going to be a problem. Might just do that right there and forget about it. So hopefully we can get enough pressure to get to the back side of the engine and circulate all that trash out, and hopefully it'll run out our upper radiator hose. Again, we've got some straight water, not distilled or anything. This is just straight from the hose pipe. We're going to try and fill this up the best we can. Not seen any leaks yet. The accuracy, man, I tell you. Now if this works, we put water in on this hose, and water should shoot out of that hose. Let's find out. Well, of course you don't want to start. Come on now. Let the fuel pump back up. I know you run, don't act like you don't. Something's about to fly away. I can't tell what's going to be first. I'm terrified. But we're smoking like crazy out of the exhaust, so I'm starting to think we have a bad head gasket. Doesn't look too happy back there, but it did smoke before. that thermostat housing has no gasket in it either. It was shooting a lot of water back at the carburetor. I don't think that was causing the smoke. I'm gonna guess it's got a bad head gasket. Go ahead and just call it. You can hear all the water pulling up on the exhaust manifold there, making all that sizzling noise. But hey, I think we got it clear. And it was coming out pretty clear on the other side that water was on the upper radiator hose. So maybe, just maybe, when we pull this all back apart, it'll look a little bit cleaner. Well, I took everything out. Water looked okay. I would not be surprised if a sleeve on the cylinder wall is cracked or something other like that, because there's a lot of scaling on those cylinder walls. But regardless of that, I'm going to put a water pump on it to make it actually run and idle. But you can see I have put a lot of RTV right there. Reason being is that stud right there, I don't know if somebody welded that on there or if it's just rusted over time and caused it to build up to where the gasket can't sit flat. So I just put a ton of RTV on it, and I'm going to put a gasket on top of it and then the water pump. The water pump will sit flush, but it will not sit against that gasket. The gasket doesn't lay flat, so hopefully it doesn't leak. Typically wouldn't do this with a paper gasket, but we're going to try it anyway. Y'all just wish me luck that it works. So far, not so good. Well, I'm an idiot, and I decided, hey, that bottom bolt, it's still turning, so heck, let's just keep turning it. So Strong Dylan decides, hey, let's just break the bolt off into the block. So that's what I'm doing right now, drilling out this broken bolt. So that's great. What was happening was it was still not getting up on here. I'll show you the differences in the water pump in a second, but right now I'm having to drill out that bottom bolt right there. All right, it's drilled out. Now we got to tap it. It's trying to rain on us. And that's something I've never done before. Broken a tap. Had to use this dang attachment because that's all that would fit. Go over the balancer over here, and you can see the tap is literally sticking out of the bolt hole. I had it all drilled out. It was working, and then I didn't realize these things were so fragile, but I broke it. I've never broken one of these before. Many times since I've done one of these. Well, back to square one, I guess. It's not very often you get a second or third chance, really, for something like this. But I was able to actually push the tap through the back side of this hole. And that doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but thankfully it did on this one. And there it is. That's the piece that broke right there. That's caused me about a day's worth of heartache, but it's out. So now let's re-drill this hole, and hopefully we can tap it with the new tap, make sure everything's not going to break this time. For everyone watching at home, don't try this at home. Be smart about doing a tap. I'm going to make sure everything's level. Just about as level as I can make it. I'm going to go a little bit. When it starts to get a little bit too rough to turn, back it up a couple turns. Try it again. We're really starting to cut now. Back up. It's fine, it's in the coolant, who needs it? I'll get it out. Ah. Yeah, we're really cutting it now. It looks pretty level to me. That's all the way through. Let me back it out. Now we'll test our bolt. Looky there. It somewhat threads. Might run the tap through it one more time, but hey, that ought to work. Have you ever seen a ported water pump bolt hole? That's what I got going on right there in that top bolt. I've had to taper it out to fit on this stud down here because it looks like somebody might have welded that in there, or it's just corroded in the form of a taper. And I've really taken out all that I feel comfortable with. I barely have just enough of a flat surface to make a gasket fit. So what I'm going to do is rig up this right here, our little whirly getter. We're going to take it, grind on this little stud right here, and make it to where that water pump will finally fit. There's just too much of a gap for me to feel comfortable bolting that on with a gasket. Let's try to get it here. Well, this is going to take a while. You saw how quickly I ran out of air there. Won't fit any better though. Oh yeah. Fire a little bit more on that. Fill this air tank back up, and then, wow, that's a lot closer. So here's our situation. We've got this. Two different radiators, and you can see that the top outlet is actually on a different side than what is on the old radiator. Not a problem though. Anyway, what we have is the old radiator. You saw it leaking earlier, and this is an aluminum radiator I got off of eBay. I paid $100 for this thing. It's a little bit bigger. I hope it fits. I'm a little concerned about the width overall. I really don't know if it's actually going to fit between the fan and the core support, but it at least looks the part. It looks the same width, so I'm hoping it'll just drop in there and bolt in. And then we'll try to wiggle the fan in its place once we get to that point. But for right now, we're just going to work on getting this radiator in there and hooked up, and then maybe we can run it without the fan. You'd be surprised about some of the things that you can find on eBay. This thing was only $100, and it may line up with a bolt hole. Heck yeah. It's a little too big, but that's okay. It's wanting to hit the cross member, but I think I can make it work. That fan probably is not going to fit. This is supposed to fit a Mustang, but I thought, hey, Mustang's close enough, right? Well, we ran into a lot of issues. First off, these hoses are a little bit too long. This top one's fine, it'll work, but look at how the bottom one had to be installed. I foresee that being an issue. I filled it up with water last night just to see if it would leak. It hasn't leaked yet, which it hasn't been under pressure yet, but it's at least not leaking to the point where it's an obvious leak. So maybe once it gets under pressure, the situation is going to change, but for right now it's okay. So a few things happened here. That hose was an issue. Now our fan doesn't fit anymore. So as you can see, our radiator is quite large. It's pretty big. The core is basically the same size, but the width of the core here is a lot wider than the old radiator, and that causes it to hit the cross member over there too. So it's bolted in on one bolt over there, hanging by a thread. just chilling out. I need to tighten that one up, and then the radiator hoses are doing the rest of the work. So it's really not great. It's not great at all, I'm not gonna lie. Since the fan doesn't fit, I went to O'Reilly and bought this generic 16-inch electric fan, and unfortunately it didn't fit with our support bracket here for the hood release, and unfortunately again this electric fan is too big for the opening on the core support, so you can see it's just kind of hanging out in limbo on the bottom half. But you know what, it doesn't move a lot, it's fine. So I wired it in, and this is just to make it work, just so I can get some temperature in the engine. But I've got these wires over here, and I forgot to unbolt the fan and spin the blades around, but it's okay, it'll still pull air through. But regardless, I'd like to see if it'll at least run and circulate some coolant. I looped here the heater hoses because I don't trust what's inside that heater core. So instead of, you know, possibly having a leak inside there, I just cut one short, looped it around, and now we can bypass that altogether. So I managed to find some bolts that were short enough. Now here's the problem. The bolt holes are a different thread than any bolt that I have of this length. So instead, I just decided, heck, let's just tap them out, because my lack of concern and patience is slowly dwindling. I have had to just rethread these bolt holes, and this is probably the 20th retap I've had to do since I started on this car, and I am just about over it. So once these get tightened up, I'm gonna call it a win. So this will be the last time I put this water pump pulley on, if all else goes according to plan. I've only done 2 right now just because I'm lazy. So 2 will hold it on enough for testing. Then once we get through the testing phase, we can go back and retap those other 4. I don't know if this video is going to do this entire job justice, but it's probably been, over the course of 2 weeks so far, what you've seen, what has been happening in this video. From the water pump giving me that trouble, I've literally walked from here to the shop at least 30 times, there and back, at least. So that's why I ended up bringing the air tank with me down here, because I got tired of walking. But what is about to happen is one of 2 things. One, the water pump explodes, and all of that hard work I put in was for nothing. Or 2, it runs, and it doesn't leak. There's no in between. Let's fire it up, try it. Hello? You run out of gas? We did. The hose wasn't touching the bottom of the tank, so we were just running out of gas. Let's fire it back up, let it warm up. I don't plan to turn on the electric fan until it actually opens the thermostat, just to get some coolant circulating in the block and let it actually get up to operating temperature. Then I'll turn the fan on. Our absolutely jank water pump is not leaking. I can't believe it.
At least it hasn't yet. No pressure's been built up, but still. Our thermostat hasn't opened either, so it's not going to really show any circulation for water yet, but it's still, I have not added any in it since last night. And I put a brand new thermostat. It's a 180 degree thermostat. I did that yesterday too off camera, but no leaks yet. Got a little smoke coming over here. Must be something leaking back there. The exhaust, let's check how it looks. Because I don't know if this is head gasket or just maybe oil from the getting by the range or something, because they haven't seated yet. They haven't had enough time to run. Kind of smells like oil, but the smoke isn't very blue. I really don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. We'll let this thing warm up a little bit. Looks like we're burning oil off that manifold right there. Probably from whenever I sprayed it all down last video. So that or the exhaust is leaking. And I noticed we have a vacuum leak coming out of the carburetor. I got to fix that too. So we probably have a high idle situation right now. Oh, there comes the smoke. Oil got hot. Could use an oil change too. It is a bit blue. Might be hard to tell on camera, but it does have a bit of a blue tint. So I don't know what's worse, oil or head gasket. See if we can get this thing to idle down a little bit. I believe the base plate has a vacuum leak, so it's not helping anything. Hear that? Gotta fix that. Still not flowing coolant yet, but it is cold out here. She's smoky. Starting to get some temperature built up. The thermostat open yet? Yeah, it's getting warm. Let me go ahead and cut the fan on just to be safe. Get some of the smoke out of here too. Heck, I guess it really doesn't matter which direction. Let me turn it around. Because it's just sitting still. It just needs the air pulled through it. You can see, look how the smoke literally comes up and goes through the radiator now. We're just pulling air through. Sitting still, it really doesn't matter as long as there's air flowing through it. Get a little more antifreeze. Coolant's kind of brown. I might have to drain it again and recirculate it, but it at least is not chunky like it was before. Seems like it's quieting down a little bit, and the rockers sounded pretty noisy before. Probably, again, need to change the oil in it for sure, but I don't see any leaks. And that's very surprising. I was very certain that I would have a leak somewhere. But I don't see anything. This thing smokes like a freight train though. Look at that. Still smokes pretty bad. But now we can let it sit here and idle. And that was really the biggest goal for this video, is to make this thing where it could sit here and run. I don't want to put it down in gear. I still need to hook up the transmission cooler lines. And I don't think they'll fit with our radiator currently, so I'm just probably going to route it to an external cooler or something. I don't really know yet. But yeah, we're shredding the belt, but hey, it works. I think we developed an exhaust leak, and our belt is really not being a belt. See, it's just it's disintegrating on the radiator, but it's okay. Everything's okay. The smoke has gotten a little bit better. It's cleared out some. I mean, it's still smoking pretty good, but before it was a giant cloud. So that's definitely helping the cause right there. Got good temperature. This hose right here is heated up pretty good. So at least the crossover's working. Yeah, we got really good temperature on the radiator and everything. It might start to get a little hot, so I'll probably let it run for just a little bit longer and then shut her down. It smells terrible. Running a little chunky. Might need to play with the timing, the carburetor. Vacuum leak up front really doesn't help anything. All right, let's shut her down and give her a break. Stand back and make sure nothing blows up in case it got hot. I don't think it did, but our belt is absolutely thrashed. Just obliterated under the radiator. We'll have to clean that up. Yeah, it's oh. Okay. Yeah. Well, our alternator is really not a pulley anymore, as you can see. It's rusted right through. So it's really not doing any favors. So check that out. Oh wow, yeah. Just destroyed it. Basically a shoelace at this point. Dang. Have to run a water hose to it, I guess. So we do have some transmission fluid down here. The poor thing's bleeding, but you can see it looks fairly red, so that's a good sign at least. Maybe when we top it off and put it down in gear, it'll at least move, and that's what we hope for, to where we can drive it up to the shop. But I'll tell you what, this car has fought me from the very beginning on this whole adventure just to put this radiator in it. This car did not want me to mess with it. I can guarantee you that. So just to recap, we broke a bolt in the water pump, had to drill it out, tap it, broke the tap, had to get it out, had to hammer it through the back side, got it out, put a new tap in there, got it in there, and then that stud was in our way, had to fight with it, got it to finally clear, And sure enough, looks like the radiator didn't leak. So that's a miracle on its own. And then our radiator hoses fought us. Our radiator's way too big for this car. So maybe that's a good thing. Our electric fan fought us because it's way too big for this car. Even the original fan is way too big for it now. So, I don't know. We at least got to run it for probably a total of 15 minutes. So that's a world record for this thing, at least in this decade. So I consider that a win for the video. Well, what did we learn? This car doesn't really want to run right now, and that's okay. I'd put up a fight too if I was sleeping for 26 years and I didn't want to move. So basically, we had a fiasco. The water pump was a fiasco, the radiator was a fiasco, and it runs a little bit better at least. It warmed up and it seemed to idle out a little bit smoother, but overall, sorry, the geese are flying over. So rude. Now I really wanted to drive this car out of this spot, but unfortunately, as you saw, every single turn and every single step we took just led to an issue. So the next video is going to be solely focused on making this car move. We got to rig up these transmission cooler lines, get these brakes unstuck, and get this thing rolling. And I plan to do that in the next video. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like down below. If you have a question for me, feel free to leave a comment. T-shirts and stickers, make sure you order them. Link down below. And join our Facebook group. It's the link down below as well. Also, try a Lipton peach tea.